Hi, Tiana.
Hello.
Thanks for joining me today on Soulful IVF. I'm so excited to have you on for a conversation.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, I've caught some of your lives. And one of the things that drew me to you on Instagram, you're the creator of Love Served Warm. And you
Yes.
just have so much passion for the work you do. I love your energy. I love, you really stand for what you believe and supporting women with a holistic approach to wellness, to health. And you're also a registered nurse and a PCOS hormone coach. So there's so many good things that we're going to dive into and your background. Thanks for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So a little bit about yourself. I'd love for you to open up and share, your passion for helping women, especially with PCOS. That's kind of your niche, right?
Yes, it is my niche.
And PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome. So I would love for you to educate us. I know this is real life. You're juggling little one at home. You have your mama of two. So during our conversation, I totally respect, for those who are listening, you're nursing right now, things happen and it's all good. We just roll with it. This is how it goes.
Thank you so much, especially in what I do. I think it's so important that women like show up building our like six-figure businesses or seven-figure businesses with our babies on our hips, and that we show other women that it's possible and that it can be done,
Yeah.
right? Because the reality is that so many mompreneurs are doing the thing with their
Yeah.
baby on their hip,
You're
right? So
literally doing it right now.
right, I'm just showing what's possible. And I hope that someone's inspired by listening. And if they're thinking of chasing their dreams, they understand that they can do it too, even with the baby strapped on their hip.
Yeah. Yes, you're based in Florida.
Yes.
And so with the background, there's you're also a weight loss coach. You have a master's degree in health law concentration. I've done some research on you, legal, regulatory compliance. There's a lot that you have knowledge and experience on. And so back to PCOS, with that being your specialty and your focus, was that something you personally experienced and kind of led you to the work that you're doing now?
Yes, it is. I actually suffered with PCOS my whole entire life. So it's never been a secret. My mom had PCOS. My grandmother had PCOS, right? We've always known about it, but at the same time, we've never known that there were any treatment available for it. We never.
Oh, no worries, Tiana.
I apologize.
It's okay.
I'll fix it for you. Okay.
Aw. Hey, sweet boy. Oh.
Yeah, she's just a little cranky again. They're
Oh,
recovering from the flu and strep. So
you have two, right? A little boy and a girl, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
a little boy
Oh,
and a girl. And my oldest goes to school and he brings us home treats such as like
oh,
strep and flu, little treats from his school.
oh my
Um,
God. Oh, that's a good way
so
to
we're
reframe it. Little treats.
little treats. So we're working through that. But
Oh,
yeah, I've always had PCOS. I've had a family history of PCOS, but again, never had any treatment options for it. We've never been told that we have to eat differently. Has my mom had cysts when she was a teenager. She had like cysts the size of a grapefruit ball removed. So she's always struggled with fertility and stuff. But again, we've never had any knowledge outside of you just will have an irregular period and you might have trouble getting pregnant. So I went my whole life like knowing that that there was this thing, but never equating lifestyle changes or dietary changes to anything that could help. It was just you pick straws and you got the straw where you're big boned and you have irregular periods, and that's just
mm.
life, right? I mean, I would try to diet and immediately crave carbs and go right back to baseline. So just internalizing everything and thinking, I have no self-will. I'm lazy. I'm just one of those women who is supposed to be larger and who won't have a cycle maybe twice a year. And that's okay. That's just the reality of my life. And for a long time, I accepted that. And I think that it wasn't until I lost my first pregnancy at 6 months pregnant to
Mm.
PCOS related complications that I was really like, hold on. Um,
Oh.
there's got to be more that can be done, right? I am a master's prepared registered nurse. I'm a level 3 NICU nurse. So I am of the highest acuity.
Mm,
And you mean to tell me that with all of these resources, with these amazing specialists I work with every day for 12, 14 hours a day, there is no advice that you could offer me, not only to save my previous pregnancy, but just to prevent this from happening again?
mm, oh my gosh.
And to that, I thought, absolutely not. And I took that answer for a little while, but eventually I started digging. I started utilizing my law degree that I wasn't actively. Give me a minute, honey, please. You're ruining my interview, please, okay?
Oh, oh,
Please, my love, please. Come here.
oh, sweetheart. Well, I just, and we,
My love, I'm doing everything that I can, okay?
so sweet.
My love, I'm doing everything. I will give you.
I'm gonna pause. Okay, and we're back. And I just admire how you handle that. We all different challenges at different stages of life, and you have 2 little ones, and you just shared with me that they both have autism.
Yes.
So you're juggling a lot, and so much compassion for you.
Thank you. There's a connection between PCOS and autism because of the increase in inflammation. Women with PCOS have 2.2 times the increased likelihood of developing or giving birth to a child with autism.
Really?
At first, it sounds surprising, but then if we
Yeah.
really think about the origin of all disease, everything, right, it all starts with inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So when we have something that causes underlying inflammation, then we can connect the dot, like we don't have the medical research to say for sure causation, right? But we can correlate, right? We can say a woman with PCOS has 50% likelihood of developing diabetes by age 40, which means that she has an increased likelihood of Alzheimer's, which is diabetes type 3, right?
Wow.
So when we look at those paths, we can clearly see what will be the path of a woman with PCOS untreated. So when there's a lot of birth issues, and I feel like that kind of like, there was always kind of like this underlying interest in these women. Because if we can be honest on this, podcast,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's that when I was a baby nurse, right? I was a nurse very early on. By 21, I was a bachelor's prepared RN, right? Working in the NICU level 3. So even though I was academically advanced, I want to say that emotionally and socially, I was still a young girl, right? With very
Mm-hmm.
inexperienced in life.
Yeah.
So I couldn't understand when I would see a woman who was 250, 300 pounds, and she had gestational diabetes, and she
Oh,
was addicted to Dunkin' Donuts, and her family would, I couldn't conceptualize. And I
right.
had a lot of judgment for those women because, in a way I was resentful because I was going to deliver that baby. And I was going to have to put in the work, and sometimes I would look at these parents and I would go with a lot of judgment in my heart, like, well, why can't you just stop eating? Why can't you, right? Why can't you? And I feel like we have to be careful when we point a finger at other people because we have like 4 pointing back at us, right? And it wasn't until I got pregnant and I had gestational diabetes and I had
Um,
the uncontrollable desire to have carbs. And I
um,
was just doing, and I just could not fight it. It was just this feeling that possessed my body, right? That I developed humbleness, that I developed compassion, that I developed, right? So a lot of times I feel like when trauma happens to us, we're so quick to like question our faith or question things. But a lot of times we need the compassion so
yeah.
that we can assimilate and we can sympathize with our neighbor. We have to experience loss so that we can appreciate love when it finally
Mm,
happens,
mm,
right? So I don't, I think that everything that happened in my life was divinely purposeful so that I could
wow.
get right to this moment.
Mm. I love that
Because
perspective.
now
Yeah, I love that perspective so much.
I have such a different perspective,
Yeah.
right? Even when I talk to people and they're like PCOS and autism, and I realize that we are so disconnected from our food sources that we don't even know how, we just think that there is this invisible possibility of developing cancer or diabetes or hypertension. And we really are so far removed from our food that we haven't made the correlation of exactly what's causing these things. Right? And I feel like that's intentional through these big brands marketing to us through some of our favorite through our favorite celebrities and our favorite people who will never use the products that they are advertising, right? We see Michael Jackson when he did the Coca-Cola and he wouldn't even touch the product. He was so far removed.
Oh,
right?
interesting. Huh?
And how many people are promoting products that they wouldn't have for their own family, right? And a lot of times we're not the marketing as a businesswoman, right? I came into business thinking I'm going to change the world. And I later learned that marketing is the manipulation of emotions. When someone is selling you a perfume, they never talk about the scents, right? One moment, I apologize. That doesn't go there, okay? It doesn't go.
And we're back. Go ahead.
We're talking about the correlation, right, between food and a lot of the things that we experience and how we're so far removed from the food, that we are not correlating what is happening with the food. We're not correlating what is happening to us. And I feel like I was mentioning before when we got cut off, this is intentional, right? Because marketing is the manipulation of emotions. When you look at a perfume, right? I'm anticipating to see notes of sandalwood, and I'm anticipating to see what kind of extracts are going to be in the perfume. But instead, what you're sold is seduction. Instead, what you're sold is the emotion of being lusted, of being desired, right? So when we start to look at things from that perspective, we realize that half of the things that we buy is based off of the marketing and not off of the educational information of that product. We're unaware of what goes in the packaging. We're unaware of the ingredients. Half of them we can't pronounce.
Yeah. So all of this basically in a nutshell, it's like leading to hormonal imbalances, which affect PCOS, which contribute to PCOS, correct? Or I would like you to kind of give us a breakdown of, maybe let's go back. Let's rewind. PCOS, what is it? What is it?
So PCOS is a collection of hormonal imbalances, right? And you have to have 2 out of 3. So we have to have a severe collection of hormonal imbalances. So every woman with PCOS with hormonal imbalances will not have PCOS, right?
Okay.
They have to have specific imbalance, mostly of the female sex hormones. So mostly estrogen and testosterone. Those 2 changes cause the biggest impact. Okay. If truth be told, I want to say so many Americans are suffering from hormonal imbalances, right? Someone who is suffering with obesity is suffering from a hormonal imbalance because the hormone responsible for fat maintenance, for managing your body composition, is insulin. So the moment that you can no longer control your appetite, the moment that you can no longer control your weight, signifies that you have a hormonal imbalance.
Okay.
Right? So men can have hormonal imbalances. This doesn't signify that they'll have PCOS, right? So everyone with a hormone imbalance doesn't necessarily have to have PCOS. What makes it more so PCOS is the distinct collection of imbalances of the testosterone and the estrogen, which cause unique characteristics like kind of like this egg oval shape. Right. There's been memes about it for years, right? About women who have like skinnier legs and maybe like larger midsections. We now understand that uneven fat distribution is related to hormone imbalances. Right. We all have an auntie who had maybe like a lot of facial hair, maybe even growing a little chin, and we just thought, oh, that auntie had too much testosterone. So that's resulting in male characteristics, right? We all know someone who's balding, right? That male pattern baldness. These are all signs that are showing us that we have an imbalance of our female and male hormones. Now, when you have a collection of 3 or more characteristics, that's when you can be diagnosed. So irregular cycles, maybe facial hair, and or evidence of cysts on your ultrasound.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you for breaking that down. I think for anyone listening who is wanting to call in a baby, maybe they don't know they have PCOS. Like how soon is it detected typically, would you say? Like, I mean, when were you detected? What age again?
I would say that PCOS can be detected very, very young, right?
Mm.
However, there is not going the characteristics of PCOS can be seen as low as, I would say, around 2 to 3 years old, right?
Wow.
However, a lot of these things are not are not characteristics that are solely related or can be solely brought back to PCOS, right? So there can be small instances that may tell you that there is a greater chance, but you cannot confirm it because the confirmation of PCOS is dependent on the menstrual cycle. Because 80% of women with PCOS have menstrual dysfunction. So it really can't be fully diagnosed until the woman has her first few menses.
Gotcha.
Or lack thereof, right? If she's like 18 and she hasn't had a cycle
Right.
since, or her first menses. So I don't know if we remember, but like when I was growing up, like 20 years ago, when I was in high school, all the girls were on birth control free regular periods. And it was just nothing that was questioned. It was just the norm. You had a regular period, you had a lot of acne, you went on birth control. It was never a question of, do we dig deeper? Is there hormonal imbalances? It was just, you just take birth control. And we all knew. And if we wanted clear skin, we'd beg our parents for birth control, right? You'd even lie and say your period is like missing if it wasn't. To my friends, who they just wanted the birth control to have like clear skin, right? So I feel like, again, we were so far removed.
And what are your
And
thoughts on the
now
impact of birth control? Like, do you have some thoughts on that?
I feel like the increase in autism that has exploded, this is a result of having a generation of women on birth control.
Ah.
All right, this is the natural consequence. The explosion of diabetes, the explosion of heart disease, the explosion of diabetes. Well, what happens when you tell women that the answer to all of their health problems lies within a pill, and you tell them that they do not need to change their dietary changes, they don't need to change their diet, their lifestyle changes, when the American Heart Association has sponsors such as I don't even remember off the top, but they have fast food sponsors, right? For the American Heart Association. And we realized that, between 1980 and 1990, I believe, I will get the exact dates for you, but the American Heart Association and the American Diabetes Association replaced the recommendations for Americans. And 10 years after, diabetes rates went up 300% by just people following the recommendations of, this is at the time where we went from butter to margarine, we went from steak to chicken, right? We made these changes. And then diabetes, if you look at the American food pyramid for a diabetic, if a diabetic went by that, they would have hyperglycemia.
There's so much running through my mind right now. So for women who maybe were on the pill for many years, you can't, like, what can you tell us? Can we change things? Can't change things from the past. We can support our bodies through how?
So I think that the first part of supporting our bodies is like through the unlearning phase, right? Because we are the generation of information. We're the generation of technology. And yet we are the sickest generation to ever have existed. So that tells us that an over consumption of information leads to nothing but anxiety, overwhelm, and you're paralyzed, right? 90% of people don't fulfill the goals that they commit to, right? And that's because we have to start with the unlearning process. There has to be some deep mental work that goes in there first, because the beliefs that women have on what works for them and what doesn't work for them, their life experiences will work to confirm their beliefs, whether they're true or not. So if you believe that managing your PCOS is not possible outside of a pill, right? The placebo effect shows us that the very dominant thought that you hold in your mind will prevent you from ever finding a solution.
Yeah, thoughts are powerful. That's one of the things that drew me to you. And I was listening to you speak, and I was like, she has a lot of wisdom to share here. Yeah.
And I will never, and it's not my job to battle someone's unconscious, subconscious mind, because it
Mhm.
rules them on such an unconscious level that this is why women find themselves starting over every single Monday. This is why women find themselves in the cycle of losing 20, gaining 30 back.
Mhm.
Because it's deep, it's the mind. There was like a meme that said your habits watch your words because they become your, it was like watch your
Yeah.
habits, but that is a reality. When we make changes from a superficial place, the changes only last superficially until we meet that goal. When we want to make lifestyle, long-term sustainable changes, that has to come from a mental shift, right? Because when you have shifted mentally and you think differently, the consequence of those thoughts will manifest into a different reality.
Yeah.
But if you're experiencing the constant reality, then that is a result of your mindset materializing, right? In the same way that water goes from solid to steam, and then from steam back to a solid, is the same
Mm.
way in which your thoughts manifest from the
Manifestation.
physical into the spiritual, back to the
Yeah.
spiritual, into the physical,
Love
right?
it.
And I even make a joke with my clients sometimes because I have a very high ticket one-to-one coaching program. And I say, if you tell me one thing in this world that has been created without first being held in someone's mind first, I will refund you the entire cost of this program. And they name out the most elaborate things.
Yeah.
I've never given a refund, right? Because nothing has been created without once being held in someone's mind. And when you see life from that perspective, that lets you know that some of the things that have been created from people who are no greater than you. And it's like, it's a mindset thing, right? So that's where it starts,
Yeah.
right? It really comes with the unlearning. But then when you get to the unlearning, you begin to connect the dots and realize that as you have been taking birth control pills, you have been, the first thing you've been doing is you've been stopping the normal bodily functions and allowing them to be improperly like copied by artificial hormones made in a lab. You are
Mm.
literally shutting off Mother Nature's hormones and relying on lab created hormones to do the job that your body couldn't do naturally for you. And with anything that we try to do for convenience, there are consequences of that. And those
Mm.
consequences are serious nutritional deficiencies, right? So we'll lack like vitamin B12, we'll lack vitamin D, right? And there has been research into the long-term effects of birth control on young women. And what they found was that the use of birth control long-term severely increased the risk of depression and suicidal ideation in young women.
Mm. Mm.
They couldn't assess the risk of suicide because there was an issue in the study where they didn't account for that information. But when we see that, right, we see that information, we understand that birth control is causing women to have nutritional deficiencies. We understand that food is medicinal. Then we could connect the dots and understand that if you have been depleting your body of the necessary nutrients it needs to complete its bodily function for 5, 10, 15 years, and you
Mm.
suddenly come off, then you cannot have the natural expectation that you're going to, one, recover all of that damage within a week or two. Two, that you have to understand in the same way that we're having this podcast, you need your microphone, we need the Zoom, we need the two people present. It's
Yeah.
the same way that in order for your body to complete certain bodily functions, you need an assortment of certain minerals that sort of act as a key to unlock those function of those hormones. And when you deny your body the ability to have access to those hormones, then what you're going to get is poor function. You're going to be tired all the time. This for
Yeah.
the last for millions of years, we have not been sedentary. We have
Mhm.
not been forced to sit down for 8 to 12 hours a day. And this directly impacts our health. Our health is it's almost like natural rebellion from our body. Right. And I feel like that
Mhm.
comes out as PCOS, ADHD, all of these things. And is it really that we've had an explosion of mental illness and all of these things? Or is it just a natural consequence of the lifestyle and industrialization and
Mm.
you know, and just the culture that we've created.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I'm thinking about women listening who may have been diagnosed with PCOS and they're having fertility challenges. I mean, where do you begin with these women? You're talking about the unlearning. You go into diet, you're talking about root cause, right? Kind of where do you begin guiding these women?
So I'm going to revert back to my framework, right? And I think it starts, so the first step, it's a 5-step framework, right? And the first step is mindset, as we discussed before. You've got to identify those limiting beliefs that are holding you back.
Yeah.
Name them, call them, label them. Because until you can identify exactly what your triggers are, you will fall victim to them every single time.
Yeah.
Okay? Whatever those triggers are, right? And
Yeah.
this is why individual personalized care is so important, because everyone has different triggers,
Yeah.
right? Identify what's yours. Work on those limiting beliefs. Okay. That's number one. Number two is that we've got to learn how to detox from the typical American diet.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to learn how to eat in a better way, in a more anti-inflammatory way, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times we fall victim, especially women, and I'm one of them, right? We fall victim to wanting to lose weight fast. We fall victim into these fad diets, keto, paleo, dairy-free, right? Restrict whole groups of food without any knowledge of what actually affects us, right? So I believe that there should be gut sensitivity testing, and there should be individualized testing to ensure that what you are doing provides results for you, because what's not measured is not managed. And as long as you continue to take a handful of darts and throw them at a potential target, one of them will land, of course, but how will you be able to redo what you have done to get that same result? Right? If there's no system in place for you to retrace and identify what's working for you and what's not, it's just wasted effort.
Yeah.
Right? So you really got to start understanding what works for us, not just in terms of generalizations, but truly what foods ignite an immune response within you personally. It's called bloating. And then we create personalized recommendations on that to support your hormones. Also looking at your lifestyle, right? We don't need to take, there's a million vitamins on my TikTok feed every day, and it could be overwhelming and we want to buy them all, right? But your diet is your supplementation is meant to supplement a healthy diet. Therefore, you need to be looking at what are you unwilling to get from your diet naturally? Is it vitamin A? Do you hate almonds? So you hate almonds, so you never get magnesium? Like where do you need supplementation? Because again, that's personalized to you, right? And then filling in those gaps, right? Oftentimes I find women with PCOS working with personal trainers, eating boiled chicken breast, cauliflower and broccoli, and meal prepping that for the week. So then I ask, where are the nutrients? Where are the assortment of nutrients that you need to support your womb, your uterus, as it rebuilds and regrows these follicles? Right? So that's number one.
So mindset, diet,
Okay,
mindset, diet, lifestyle. Are those some of your top three?
yes.
Steps?
So mindset is first. Number two is nutrition. And number three is learning to fix your cycle, right? The cycle is your cycle is your overall. Okay, again, one more time. Your cycle is okay. Your cycle is your hormonal balance, right? Your cycle is your hormone balance, right? So the cycle is evidence, or should be evidence, that you have completed your full hormonal cycle, which means that you have made your follicle stimulating hormone, you've made your luteinizing hormone, you've made your estrogen, your testosterone, your progesterone, right? Your menstrual cycle should be the natural consequence of ovulation and the completion, right? In the same way that there are 13 moons yearly, women should be having 13 28-day cycles aligned with the moon. In the same way that the moon empties and fills, it's important for women to understand how their hormones and their needs could be emptied and filled throughout certain periods of the month, right? For instance, maybe during your menstrual cycle, all your hormones are bottomed out, plateaued as you are releasing that endometrial lining. So this is not a good time for you to work out. This is not a good time for you to do CrossFit. But this is a great time for you to focus on the back end of your business, because there is increased connection between the right and left hemispheres of the brain during this part of your cycle.
Mm.
You know, like knowing
Yeah.
how to honor your cycle, right?
Yeah.
This is not a good time, right? Then after this, we're going into the follicular phase, right? As we prepare for ovulation, right? But when you ovulate, you suddenly feel like your skin feels good for those 5 days. And your husband starts to look attractive to you again after getting on your nerve for just chewing, right? and you feel like your stomach is flatter. Isn't this a good time to schedule podcast interviews? Hello. Right? Isn't this a good time to schedule
Oh.
any business ventures that you might have, because you feel your best, you're most confident?
Mm.
The same way that a woman goes through a 28-day cycle, men go through the same, but theirs just lasts 24 hours.
24 hours. Yeah, it's true.
Right? So we have to learn how to identify and honor that. Otherwise, we'll catch ourselves at Orange Theory, working out, blowing out our cortisol level, working out for a whole month, and going on the scale and finding out you maybe in fact gained a pound because you've increased your inflammation, because you've increased your stress hormone, because you're not properly managing stress, right? So those things matter. And then after we figure out how to fix our cycle and how to understand our hormones, we have to understand how those menstrual hormones, how they interact with all the other hormones. Because how many women do I meet that they've got a hysterectomy because they were told that that's the cure to PCOS, and here they are still suffering with no ovaries and a slur of symptoms.
Oh my
Or
goodness.
women who are promised BSG surgery, and then they have no stomach, no physical ability to eat, but mentally the cravings are still kicking their butt, and it causes depression, and it causes mental health issues when psychologically they have not mastered the root cause of their overeating, which never had anything to do with their stomach.
Mm.
It had to do with the imbalance of the hormone insulin. And as long as the brain believes that the body is still in starvation mode, you're going to continue to have the cravings, whether you have a stomach to tolerate the food or not.
There's just so much information. I mean, even listening to you, and I'm no longer going through my fertility path, but it's like, it's so, there's so much. I can just imagine women who are listening to this right now. It's almost like, okay, we're like talking to a specialist is probably really key, and just getting some baseline helpful data. I mean, most of the women I support, they're all going through IVF, and that you are put on the pill at times of the cycle. Is that hurting in your opinion, individuals? I mean, we're given the pill to like reset and baseline and all the things.
And is it really resetting? Right? Because
Mm.
when we have to understand as women, right? We have to go back to the 1940s and 1950s when birth control manufacturers said, oh, these women are getting too smart. They're refusing to take birth control because they have no cycle. So now we have to manipulate our marketing to make women believe that that 1 week that they're taking the sugar pill, they're getting an actual cycle. When it's just a withdrawal of hormones, it's just a bleed. There is no hormonal cycle that is associated with that bleed that you have at the end of the month. So if you've been on birth control for 15 years, I have terrible news for you. You have not ovulated in 15 years. Your hormones have not done their cycle in 15 years. So when doctors say we're going to kickstart, we're going to give you Provera to get your cycle, they need to provide the education that that is not a real cycle. That will eliminate the endometrial lining. So that will alleviate some types of cancer from that endometrial lining that needs to be shed. But that does not reset your hormones. That does not give you progesterone. You are still just as tired, just as moody. You still have cravings. They did not reset anything, right? And we've gotten so comfortable with these 15-minute doctor's appointments where they're supposed to do a full assessment, educate you on all the risk and side effects and everything, and also give you a course of treatment. There is no room for the education that's necessary, for the lifestyle changes, for the dietary changes. So what we are experiencing in our broken healthcare system is just a chain of profit. They create the foods, they eliminate the fiber, they increase the sugar, right? They create the drugs, Ozempic, right? That is now marketed to everyone with PCOS, right? We just create this chain, right? And we don't go back to the root source of things. If everyone has admitted that Ozempic has worked wonders, then we have to then admit that we have an issue with our food manufacturing. We have an issue if people need to be medicated to avoid the food noise that they experience as a result of having hyper processed foods that stimulate the same portions of their brain as cocaine.
Oh my gosh.
We're dealing with Americans who have distinct food addictions almost as powerful as cocaine, but these food addictions are just lobbied and they're labeled, and they're protected, and but it is an addiction nonetheless. And that's why it brings me to the fifth step of my framework, which is maintenance, because the reality is you will fall off. The reality is you will gain back weight. You will go back to doing something, and you have to know how to get back on the horse once you've fallen off. If anything, it's the most important, right? Because life is a marathon. It is not a sprint. And I want women to understand that there doesn't have to be this life of restrictions and just it doesn't have to be so tumultuous. It gets to be easier. You get to do more, you get to get more by doing less. It's pulling back the layers like a banana of capitalism and hyper consumerism. Right? But that is a deep dive, and that requires a lot of mindset work, because we have been conditioned and plugged into this kind of like matrix that really depends on us to be ignorant to, and it really functions by keeping us disconnected from our food sources. Right? Recently it went viral. People were learning how to make breakfast cereal. And it was like Rice Krispies is just fried rice and sugar, right?
Okay, and I missed that one.
People were like so amazed. And it brought me to, if Rice Krispies is just hard-boiled rice fried and sugar, then why does it have like 80 ingredients on the box? And what is the consequence of having this many chemicals provided to us in this sequence? Is this not related to an increase in autism and trouble concentrating and decreased fertility? I mean, research any one of those ingredients. Red 40, right?
Oh yeah.
We can connect the dots. There's no secret around PCOS. There are just gatekeepers that have big profits in place, legislatives in their pocket, and they make the laws to keep women in the dark. But there is no secret about PCOS. There's no secret about even the steps of my program is no secret.
Do you see it on the rise? Do you see it on the rise?
Not only do I see PCOS on the rise, I see autism on the rise. I see heart disease. I see Alzheimer's. I see a kidney dialysis center popping up on every corner when I go to, lower income places. Right? You can see clearly they are preparing for, and the craziest thing is that they have calculated that within the next 15 years, okay, it was 20, but recently they updated last year, within the next 15 years, the US will have more deaths than births.
Oh my gosh.
Because we have refused to not only refuse financially, but women, the IVF clinics, right? They are experiencing record-breaking numbers. They're booked out, like they're experiencing record-breaking numbers in ways that they have never seen before, because women cannot procreate naturally. And I think that it's been a long time coming that we needed to have ring the alarm.
Wow. Yeah, you're a big fan of advocacy, speaking up, using your voice. Obviously, anyone listening to this, you can feel your passion in what you're sharing, and really empowering all of us to take control of our health. That's okay. Your mom. She's trying to, for those listening, she is talking to her kiddos in the background, juggling both. 2 kiddos. Oh, my mind is blown listening to you, though. I mean, there's so much like questioning what we're putting in our mouth,
right. And why I'm so passionate about that, because nothing that you can ever do will outrun just the volume of what you put in your mouth. You know, you can try clean beauty, you can try everything else, but nothing is going to be as effective as diet. And as I say this, as not only a woman with PCOS, but as a mother of 2 autistic children, one which was barely verbal, right? Up to just recently when I was able to change his diet. He has just acclimated back into the school system after being homeschooled, because he was literally a Tasmanian devil.
That story blew my mind. You have to share just a snippet of that, because it's like what he was like and what you did and changing his diet and how he just became a different kid in the classroom. And I, you know, being an occupational therapist, having worked in schools, and it's like, I can totally picture this, you know?
So my son had,
okay. And we're back, and you were going to share a little bit about how you helped support your son in the school system through his diet, through, you know, and what changes you saw in his behavior.
yeah, so, you know, as a mom to a young boy, my son was just very, very active from very young, just very, very active. And I had some concerns about his hyperactivity, but you know, he's a boy and you just burn him out. But I was realizing that I would do what I thought was burning him out by taking him to the park, but it would he would become overstimulated. And instead of coming home and going to sleep, he would then be able to be up till 2, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. I also started to realize that people just wouldn't understand his voice. He sounded perfect to me, but to other people, they say he sounded like the Tasmanian devil, right? And all of this really started happening after a set of vaccinations that he received around his first birthday. He just stopped taking the breast, and he developed like a sensitivity to certain textures, and just stopped eating
sensory challenges, sensory integration, self-regulation.
Yeah. And so he became addicted to Pediasure. And that's a part I wanted to mention, because he was taking about 6 to 8 cans a day, and he would not eat solid food outside of that. So when I finally went to go get him tested, there was a lot of resistance about getting him tested because everything else looks so normal. He's very, very high functioning. However, they did see him have a really bad meltdown, and that's where I got him diagnosed. And their advice basically was just keep him addicted to the Pediasure and keep him away from other children, because he can become stimulated.
That's what they suggested to you.
That was their suggestion. And I did that. And I did that because I thought that was in the best interest of my child.
Yeah.
But then I started to research into his hyperactivity, and I realized that there were some, again, talking about the food, there were some nutritional deficiencies that were linked to ADHD. And when these nutritional deficiencies were supplemented, the kids were no longer hyperactive. So my ear went up, and it was like, oh, well, let's try it, right? I think it's called like Happy Owl or something. I don't, but I tried it and it absolutely worked. So then he did a little better. So then I researched into Pediasure, and I discovered that each can of Pediasure was the equivalent of 1 Snicker bar.
Oh my gosh.
Sugar. And my son was getting 6 to 8 a day.
Oh my God.
So then I got so passionate about it that I became a ketogenic nutritionist. Right? And I was like, I'm going to teach every woman to avoid carbs. And I developed shingles. And right, so it's been all of these challenges, but in that journey, not only did we reverse all of my son's hyperactivity, I took him out of daycare because when he would get overstimulated, he would bite other children. Like he couldn't communicate, so he would just bite.
Yeah.
And I was just tired of them treating him really like an animal, honestly. And so I did what like any mom would do, you know, I took him home, and I decided that if you were going to test a fish by its ability to climb a tree, then my son would fail every time.
Wow.
And I brought him home, and I set up a little classroom, and I just worked to teach him the same concept, but just to digest it for him just a little bit more. Just redirect him on the questions, right? Really. And my son would go, that's what they're asking, Mom? I know that.
Then so his language, he started talking clearer?
Yeah, he started immediately after, not only after detoxing from Pediasure, but after doing a detox, right? And for my moms listening, it is just Amazonian clay, right? Epsom salt, which is magnesium, and I'm missing one ingredient, Amazonian clay, Epsom salt, and a little bit of apple cider vinegar. You can make a really potent detox in the bath that will help to pull out any heavy metals. These are usually given during vaccines, right? That's where we get the most. So I did this bath. I removed the carbs, the processed foods from his diet.
Mhm.
I started learning how to make gummy bears, right?
Oh my God.
Myself with beef gelatin or bone broth or right. And I started because he was still young. I wanted to assimilate into the American diet. I wanted to look like the American diet. I
Yeah.
just didn't want to have any of the toxic things of the American. So I just learned how to recreate everything. And this year I took my son back to school and he went back to school with no IEP.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's amazing.
He went back to school to a regular classroom.
Wow.
And just to tell you, 2 years earlier, he was in the most aggressive classroom for severe, emotionally aggressive children. So we have made the jump, right? So I don't think it's a PCOS thing,
Mm,
right? I think it's an American thing. I think
mm,
it is a problem that we have because it's not only PCOS, it's diabetes, it's everything. And the way that the illness will manifest is based on your genetics, right? So everyone is facing the same nutritional, the same issues, but our symptoms are manifesting differently based on our genetics and what we're most predisposed to,
mhm.
right? We're all suffering. You
Yeah.
talk to any woman, she's tired. She can't make it through the day. She can't remember a 7-digit number anymore. Before you could remember your number,
Mm,
right?
mhm.
We are all experiencing the same things. It's just the way that it manifests is different based on our genetics. And I feel like my son is the prime example of that.
Yeah.
And I manage everything that they go through as best as I can naturally. I
Yeah.
don't take Tylenol because there is a lawsuit and link between Tylenol and children with autism and the effects that it has on children with autism.
Really? Oh my God.
Yeah,
I'm learning so
there,
much from you. Oh my gosh.
oh my God, it's so deep,
Wow. This is
right?
like a whole nother time. I mean, we've been
A
having
whole
this
nother one,
conversation.
right?
We're going all over the place.
Yeah,
I
but
love
just to
it.
wrap it
Yes.
back around to
Yes.
close the conversation,
Yeah.
it's like all of these ailments, or at the root of all of them is our nutrition. And
Mm,
women with PCOS have been like the sirens of our community because we are letting you know that we have reached the point where fertility is on the table. And because we have ignored the sirens, which are the women with PCOS, which are just women who have hypersensitivity to these things, I feel like what we're going to experience in society within the next 20 years is the decline. We're going to see the decline of health because we've had the notice from women with PCOS, from IVF clinics being at their max, and we have not actively got together, have the conversations, form the reform, the legislative to get these people to get politicians out of healthcare and out of places that they don't
yeah.
belong, and bring it back to the people.
Yeah.
We've realized that we've had the opportunities. The information is available. We have chosen to ignore the information and to continue to make profit king over people. So as a result of that, I think that things will only continue to get worse.
Mm.
And I think that we have to really brace ourselves for what is going to come next.
Well, let's leave women with some hope. So you can stay empowered in your path by being an advocate, asking questions, to really unlearning some of these things that we naturally just think this is the norm. No, maybe it's not. Let's
Yeah,
question
no,
it.
I think that there's definitely hope for women with PCOS. Let
Yeah.
me flip that back around if I sound like great. There's definitely so much hope, but I
Yeah.
think that that hope we have to be so intentional about holding on to that hope with both hands. We have to be really intentional about cradling that hope within two hands. And what that looks like is we have to get intentional about the foods that we are feeding our children. What are we allowing into our homes? What are we allowing from the businesses that we work for, right? What are we seeing a trend where profits are larger than people. Like, where can we make changes? How can we
Yeah.
support more? And I think that once we start to create those changes, have those conversations, and again, I always bring it back to the food, right? Why is a cheeseburger $1 and a salad $10?
Yeah.
We have to get to
Cheeseburgers are now like $20. Like everything.
like,
Inflation.
right?
I'm kidding. Everything's gone up, but you're right. I mean, to eat healthy, it's
That's where
not
we
a
start.
cheap
And
thing.
in order to eat healthy, we're going to have to fight back against these corporations who are in charge of our foods. And I feel
Yeah.
like when we reach that point that we get so fed up and we start lobbying against what we allow in our homes and for our children, when the FDA begins abandoning things that are already illegal in places like Europe, right? California
Mhm.
is already trying to start banning red 40 and things like that. When we get serious about these conversations, I believe that we can begin to turn the page.
Yeah.
I believe that we can begin to regain control of our bodies through
Yeah.
body literacy and body advocacy. And that is my wish, right? I created Love Surf One because I have the dream for women to learn to reverse their symptoms through body advocacy and body literacy.
Yeah. Well, I love your passion. I feel your heart and this fire within you for this work. And I'm so grateful for this incredible conversation. You really, taken us on a journey. Like I've learned so much from you. And thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's
Yeah.
absolutely been a pleasure.
Yes. And I'll include your links below. Do you want to share your website?
Yes, for any women struggling with their PCOS, hormonal imbalances, fertility, or weight loss, you can find me at lovesurfwarm.com and on all social media platforms at lovesurfwarm.com. I want nothing more than to have the opportunity to hold space for you and to serve you Love Surf Warm.
Ah, beautiful. Thank you, Tiana.
Thank you.